One, we started streaming.
Oh, do we?
Now we did. Yes. Hold on. Hopefully it'll show up in a bit. I won't.
It's already
start
streaming.
until it does. Anyway, hey everybody. This is Arun with the Oil Drop Podcast number 58. The old normal is now the new normal. By the old normal, I mean not making the playoffs for 10 years is once again the new normal of not making the playoffs again. As you see, we have a little bit of a different setup here. I will let Adam know if he's ever encroaching into my area. You're just gonna get covered, buddy. That's how it's gonna work. Anyway, with me today is just Adam. Unfortunately, James had some internet problem. We'll be making this a fairly short cast, mostly just playoff preview, things like that, and. Before that, I guess some summary stuff about the season in general. We'll be doing a really good in-depth podcast for the end of April, and that'll be our next podcast, and it'll be probably our longest podcast of the season, well, closer to like 2 hours. Although we will probably tire out partway through it and then rush through it like we always do. Anyway,
maybe we should. Yeah, maybe we should cap that at an hour and a half. 2 hours.
We'll try our hardest to keep it as short as possible. Anyway, hopefully everyone can hear me just fine. I'm going to fiddle around with my OBS because I'm noticing that I'm super quiet on OBS. Is it working? Oh, it is. Okay, good. That was weird. Anyway, coming back to it. First topic, I will throw it to Adam while I pull up some playoff stats, if that's fine with you.
What's our first topic, sorry?
Your summary and your thoughts for this season.
Oh,
the Oilers finished whatever they finished. I will pull up the stats in a second.
Oh, God. Disappointing. I mean, is the one word we used last week, and I think it's still pretty accurate. It was disappointing how poorly some players played. It was disappointing how we started the season, how we ended the season, how we played throughout the season. It was disappointing that Nugent Hopkins had his ribs broken and couldn't, play with McDavid more often. It was disappointing that our power play was so bad and McDavid couldn't produce more points. It was incredibly disappointing that we put up the all-time league worst home penalty kill since they started recording the stat. It's disappointing that we didn't see any changes thus far in the coaching staff, and according to Bob McKenzie, it doesn't seem like there's going to be any changes with the GM of the coaching staff. It was disappointing we didn't make the playoffs after being slated a Cup Finals favorite. I don't know if there's much more you can really say other than disappointing, but it was disappointing. It was poor effort all around. Our defense needed to be better. Our offense needed to be better. Our goaltending needed to be better. Coaching needed to be better, and our GM certainly needed to be better. So ultimately, I'm glad the season's done, and I'm glad that Connor's enjoying Whistler right now because he's on vacation.
Yeah. Anyway, on that point, Adam works in Whistler, and he saw Connor's lovely pimple face. I don't know how many pimples.
Bearded face. He's not pimples anymore. He's an adult now.
Bearded. He's a man now.
A wispy beard.
He's a man's man now. Also on that point, I think one of the highlights of the season, because you've really nailed the negative parts, and we really talked about the negative parts. But one thing I really want to drive home is the fact that, for a shitty season that we had, Connor is just phenomenal. And that was just encapsulated by the end of the season, where he finishes 6 points ahead of the second place finisher for points total. The likely winner... Sorry, I'm gonna finish.
I was just saying, yeah. Go ahead, yeah.
The likely two biggest candidates for winning the Hart, according to media right now, in my honest opinion, it should go to Pekka Rinne, but they are Nathan McKinnon and Taylor Hall, and individually, McDavid is 11 points ahead of McKinnon and 15 points ahead of Taylor Hall. It is absolutely nuts in terms of how good McDavid is. And it's also saddening that, when you bring up, oh my God, McDavid's so good, it's quickly followed by, yeah, but you didn't make the playoffs. And it's the reality of the matter, and that's where a lot of the disappointment comes in. It's going to be interesting in terms of how everything works out that on that front. But just finishing off stats for the Edmonton Oilers, we finished 23rd in the league. Below us was Rangers, Blackhawks, Canucks, Red Wings, Montreal Canadiens, Coyotes, Senators, and Sabres. Bunch of surprises in there, biggest one being Blackhawks, who fell hard from winning the West in last season, getting swept and now finishing 25th. But some bigger stats here. Goals for per game was 2.79. Goals against was 3.2. Our power play percentage, I want to double check before I give bad stats here, is the lowest in the league by a solid 0.6% below St. Louis Blues at 14.8%. Our penalty kill improved significantly to 25th in the league, good for 6th last. And I say improved significantly because we were solidly sitting at a 71-ish percent. Now we're sitting at 76.7%, albeit our home penalty kill is still going to has finished as the worst in NHL history. Our shots for per game is a very impressive 7th in the league at 33.4, albeit along with us above us in that category is the Blackhawks, the Flames, and the Florida Panthers. And shots against is a very average 32.1. In terms of face-off percentage, in my opinion, it's a very bullshit stat and doesn't really mean for anything, is 48.7%, good for 25th in the league. And I think if we were to point to the biggest culprits for, what went wrong this season, undeniably, you could say that, the effort was there at the wrong time. So the effort really needed to be there at the beginning of the season. We needed to string it together. Talbot needed to show up in the first half of the season especially. But Talbot wasn't there. Clefbaum, disappointing season. Larson showed up, had a much better second half of the season, but, loss of a father, poor season in general, and everything just goes poorly for him on that front. And along with that, you could say and you could point to the power play and the penalty kill being as bad as they are. And that's a huge reason for why we did poorly this season. And to add to this, the Edmonton Oilers finished with a new all-time record for lowest penalties called in our favor in an NHL 82-game season. The previous record holder for this was last year, which featured one of the lowest years that penalties were called in a season, with the Columbus Blue Jackets getting 211 calls for them, minor penalties, mind you. This season, the Oilers drew 210 calls, so just by one minor penalty difference.
One second here. Yeah. I'll be right back. Keep going.
Yeah. I was actually planning to throw it to him at this time, so I will carry this podcast like I always do, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh.
Anyway, it's sort of all over the place. Yeah. I would really question how effective this team will be even when we fix the power play.
Is there a bag behind you on the ground there?
There's a bag behind him on the ground there, everybody.
Check. There should be a bag in the office or somewhere. Make sure it was from Roundhouse.
No, I muted myself. I apologize for that. I don't know how to address this.
Behind the desk, behind the open cabinet, or in the office somewhere.
Anyway, hold on. I know how to fix this. Just give me a quick second here.
If not,
there we go. So really quickly, there's a lot of stuff that's in place, but simply put, bad goaltending, bad penalty kill, power play, bad defending. I mean, there's a lot of different aspects here, and ultimately, I'm just repeating myself at this point, but it's quite literally just that. It's just all around, we were a bad team that finished at 6th or 8th worst in the league because we had McDavid, and that's the reason we didn't finish last in the league.
I think it's worth noting too, of all the things that went on with Connor throughout the season, he got better as the season went on.
Yes.
Which is ridiculous to think of, because it was already over 1 point a game, and then I think he ended up getting 1.5 points a game in the last 35 games of the season. Mm-hmm. It was something stupid where I remember the stat with He had 52 points in 38 games played as of a month ago, I think it was. And he improved since then. All the other top players dropped off. Kucherov slowed down. Giroux did increase a fair bit at the end. But Malkin fell off a little bit. Like, all the top scorers fell off, and Connor caught everybody. He was in 12th until like mid-February, and then even in March it was like, oh, we don't know if he's going to catch Kucherov.
Well,
he's
he
still
jumped up to like 6th when he was like mid-February,
right?
And then suddenly he's just
he was second, and then all of a sudden he overtook Kucherov. It's just absurd. But I actually have a personnel question. If you want to start off going with the team here.
Okay, sure.
Well, it's a reference to what Connor's done this year. So, has playing with Connor and proving he has chemistry with Connor solidified Nugent Hopkins as a undeniable piece of the puzzle in Edmonton and untradeable in the near future?
I actually think the opposite thing has happened, and I think that's made him a more valuable asset to sell in order to alleviate cap concerns and cap problems. Adding the fact that, was it Todd, or not Todd, Chiarelli has made it very obvious that he's building for now. I actually think even unless we're picking top 3, I think even our pick will be traded in this draft.
I could see the pick being traded before Nugent Hopkins, to be honest. If we're picking top 5, I would hope at least that they take a strong look at what McDavid and Nugent Hopkins did in the last eighth of the season, where they help propel each other to a Nuge. I think
one thing that
Nuge scored his career high. I'm pretty sure, didn't he not? Your career high in goals, or tied his career high.
Yeah, I'll pull that up and make sure that you're not talking out of your ass either. Nuge.
Make your point there. I'll grab it here.
Nugent Hopkins, there we go. Anyway, like Nugent Hopkins, one thing I want to point out is like to emphasize how good of a season he's had. Some people might point to McDavid and say, it's McDavid that boosted his totals and whatnot. But the thing about it is that Nugent Hopkins, before his injury, was already trending towards scoring 30 goals this season.
Yeah,
obviously, playing with McDavid, definitely boosted his numbers by quite a bit. Where he was supposed to finish around 20-ish goals, he finished around 24 goals. That still being said, he was playing really well to begin with, and McDavid just helped him reach another level. And on that point, I would question, I feel really bad in questioning this, but how good is Draisaitl?
I think, have you seen McClellan's year-end interview yet? Because what he did say is Draisaitl lost towards the end of the season.
Hello?
Draisaitl was hoping for the playoffs.
Okay.
He didn't get there, and he fell off a little bit. He was disappointed. Whether or not you can blame confidence on it, whatever. But Draisaitl did give up a little bit this season, is what McClellan said in his interview.
Yeah.
It's just concerning, but for young players,
it's reasonable.
It's not surprising. After a year of success and having a big contract and all these expectations on you, and all of a sudden you're squeezing your stick too tight, and you're not producing and you start, the harder you try, the worse you do, and the more you relax, the worse you do. You get frustrated, and then your team's playing like crap, and you can't make the playoffs. I get it. But it's a little odd. Like, if you look at Nuge this year, is 24 and 24, so as many goals as he had assists, which is seriously impressive, for 48 points. And for the majority of the season, he didn't play with McDavid or Draisaitl. He played on the third line by himself, often with Kara or Caggiula or Lucic, and he played well. I hope he sticks around. I hope you're wrong, to be perfectly honest, but I'm not. I don't think you're entirely off base.
No. I guess from this point, because we'll really be getting into this in our next cast, probably around, let me pull up a date here so I'm not speaking out of my ass, around like 29th of April. 28th, 29th, just in the transition into May there. Before, obviously, there's something big going on Wednesday. It's starting. Actually, before I get into this, our thoughts and prayers go out to the people in the family and the friends of those who were impacted at Humboldt. It's very tragic in terms of what happened. We encourage everyone to check out the GoFundMe page. And if you're not able to contribute, or you don't think that's a proper way to go about doing it, it's always good to keep them in your thoughts and prayers, even if you're not religious. It's just in your thoughts, because it's tragic regardless of what happened. Regardless, coming back into it, we wanted to talk about it because it was hockey related incident that happened. For those that don't know, just search it online. You'll find plenty of information. Stanley Cup playoffs, okay? Featuring not the Edmonton Oilers, but first off, Western Conference. So we're going to give you the skinny, the how-do, the whatchamacallits in terms of how you can go about guessing properly your fantasy hockey pools in order to think and figure out who's going to win and how many games. What are your thoughts? Anyway, first matchup is the Jets versus Minnesota Wilds. The Jets' record is 114 points. Minnesota is 101 points. Winnipeg is the second team in the Central Division, and Minnesota is the third from the Central. In terms of head-to-head matchup, it's all been pretty dominantly either way, honestly. 2 1-goal games, Jets 4-3, Jets 2-1. 1 thrashing, Jets 7-2. And then the Wild 4-1. So Wild has 1 win in their pocket. But what are your thoughts, Adam?
Well, if you look at their comparison stats, which is the nice thing that the Score app does here. Right now, the opening line, I believe, favors the Jets.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, you look at goals allowed and goals for. The Jets have the Wild beat pretty badly. And you know what? I would have seen this as a potential upset. The Wild have been quite good recently, and then the Jets have fallen off a little bit. But with Ryan Suter being injured, I don't know if the Wild can pass this one. Unless Devin Dubnyk goes full Tim Thomas, I think it's pretty well assured that the Atlanta Flames / Winnipeg Jets franchise will finally win their first playoff round in franchise history.
Yeah, and I really don't want to jinx it, but this is honestly in the West one of my guarantees in terms of a matchup in head-to-head. My big category is how is the team coming into the playoffs in terms of figuring out who's going to do well, and the second one is how is their head-to-head matchup. Sometimes you give the benefit on the doubt in terms of, did they win the President's Trophy or not? But at the end of the day, they've got the matchup preference. As much as you can say the Jets had a little bit of trouble coming into it, the Jets still have the best record at home at 32-7-2. Connor Hellebuyck at 24 years old has set a record for most wins by an American-born goalie. He's been phenomenal coming into it. And meanwhile, Devin Dubnyk has been the Pacarine of 4 years ago, where he can either be phenomenal, but then the next game he'll be absolutely atrocious. So, in all honesty, I'm going to say Jets in 5.
I'm going to say Jets in 6. I think Doobie still has at least 2. So I believe the Wild at home this year were still quite good. The home record for the Wild were 27-6-8. So both teams were very dominant at home.
Yeah.
So I anticipate the Jets take the first 2, the Wild take the next 2, and then they go 1-1 back.
That's actually a comment I wanted to make. Winnipeg has the best record at home at 32-7-2. Minnesota has the next best record at 27-6-8.
Yeah. So I fully anticipate this series. I could potentially go to 7. I don't think it does, not with the way the Wild defense is right now. But I bet you Devin Dubnyk steals at least 1 or 2. I'm looking forward to the whiteout in Winnipeg. That should be fun again this year. Winnipeg's it's a cold, barren
wasteland. They don't even get internet there, dude.
But man, they
sorry,
they're very much like Edmonton in the sense that they love their hockey. Their hockey is their entertainment, and it'll be awesome to see them go nuts in the playoffs.
Yeah. Honestly, if you're like wanting a team to just bandwagon, this is probably the easiest team to in the history of the NHL, I would say, to easily call Canada's team, because there's very few people that hate this team. Yeah, add in the fact that there's Laine, who is very likable, Scheifele, who is an underdog and very underrated, Blake Wheeler, who is generally loved by a lot of people for being a really good guy. Although some people might hate him for his politics, but that's for different reasons, let's say.
Dustin Byfuglien is a funny man.
And some people might not like Dustin Byfuglien, but Dustin Byfuglien, plays good hockey. And adding Trouba, Hellebuck, and so on, it's going to be an exciting team to watch. Anyway, next matchup before we get too caught up in all of this, Nashville Predators versus Colorado Avalanche. So these are both Central teams. Avalanche barely squeaked in with a regulation win against St. Louis Blues. They needed a regulation win in order to qualify, and they got it because Blues choked it out in the last stretch. Two key things to point out here. Predators hold a perfect record this season against the Avalanche, and only one of their wins came in extra time, specifically an OT win that the Predators had in their third game in Colorado. This is probably one of those where if this goes Colorado's way, everyone's bracket will be ruined.
Yeah.
Because Nashville boasts the best defense, the best goaltending, probably not the best offense, but a lot of their offense comes from the defense. Add in the fact that to finish it off this year, in the last quarter of the season, the Avalanche Predators record is 14-4-2 compared to Colorado's 10-5-4. And I'd really question in terms of, I'd say this is going to be a sweep.
You know what? Looking at the stats too, I mean, if we look at the goals per game, it's not like they're relatively close. The Nashville Predators are 3.18 for 7th in the NHL, and the Avs are 3.11 at 10th in the NHL. So it's not like the Predators don't score; it's just their defense is incredibly good because they give up the second least goals in the NHL.
Who's the first? Kings, right?
I
should be the
believe
Kings.
So. I haven't checked that in a while, but I know.
I'll check it.
Right now I have my score app open.
It's the Kings, followed by the Predators, followed by the Ducks. And the Jets are 5th on that list, by the way.
It's worth noting the Avs are 14th, so they're pretty average. But I believe Semyon Varlamov is out right now.
Oh, 14th, tied for 14th. Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm interrupting you. Continue.
But they're pretty even in terms of penalty kill and power play. The power play of the Avs is a bit better, but realistically, I'm hard pressed to give the Avs even a chance in this one. I really don't think they're going to have a chance. They're kind of happy to be back there. Jonathan Bernier is going to be their starter. He was very average this year with a 9.13 and a 2.85 with a 19-13-3 record. Pekka Rinne, to quote Urinating Tree on YouTube, he's just too good right now. And last time he said that, obviously they got destroyed in the finals, but Pekka Rinne has been godlike again this year, and I bet you that one's going to go 4-0 for the Predators.
Yeah. If there was a sweep that you're betting for in this first round, that would be it.
Maybe 4-1 because the Avs have been pretty good at home. They're really, really good at home, but I don't give them a lot of, like, they're 28-11-2, so they are actually, they both have the same amount of wins at home. So the Avalanche have been very good at the Pepsi Center, but I don't give the Avs much of a chance at all to win more than one.
Okay, jumping into the next matchup, we got to go a little bit faster here. Considering I at least want to talk about who you think is going to your second round, your third round, and the winner too. Vegas Golden Knights versus LA Kings. Vegas has 109 points to finish the season with 51 wins. Very good first-year success story. LA finished at wildcard 1 seed. 98 points, and funny how that works, where the Pacific team gets Pacific matchup, and the Central team gets Central matchup. But just really jumping into it, the record, head-to-head matchup record is first 2 games were taken before the new year by the Golden Knights 4-2 and 3-2. That was the set ladder in overtime. And then afterward, which is back-to-back games, weirdest schedule. Actually, I switched that, sorry. Vegas took the first game 4-2. LA took the second game 3-2 in overtime. LA took the third game 3-2 in overtime. And Vegas took the last game 4-1 in regulation.
He took the second game 3.
Hey, that's me.
That is you. Make sure there's nobody in chat.
Anyway, finishing off the point, Vegas is pretty weak coming into the final quarter. They're 10-8-2, and they're the second poorest outside of the Flyers in terms of final quarter of the season. The Kings, meanwhile, finishing strong with 12-5-3, and they still have 11 players remaining from that 2013-2014 Stanley Cup winning club. Key players to watch, I would say Kopitar and Carlson.
Yep. You know what? This one I have a feeling is going to be the upset in the West. I can see the Kings winning this one in 5 or 6. Probably 6, to be honest. The Knights have been a hit or miss team for the last quarter to a third of the season. It's really going to depend on Marc-Andre Fleury. If he can carry them like he has with the Pens in the playoffs in the past, they have a chance to get past the Kings and go further. But if he is average Marc-Andre Fleury, which is still good but not godlike, I don't know if the Knights can beat the Kings, because the thing about the Kings is regardless of how they play in regular season, become next level in the playoffs.
True.
They know how to win in the playoffs, and this team has been there before. They've been underdogs before. They've had disappointing seasons. They've gotten back there finally. I see the Kings potentially winning this one in 6.
Let's finish this off. I'm going to agree with you. I see the Kings winning in 7 instead of 6. I definitely think Gerard Gallant is very good in terms of adapting on the fly. But that being said, the Kings coaching has improved drastically, and their style itself has changed dramatically. Anaheim Ducks versus San Jose Sharks, our last matchup of the West. The Sharks hold a 3-0-1 record in the season series, albeit 2 of those wins have come in shootout wins. The Ducks' only win has also come in a shootout win, and the last remaining game was a 6-2 victory for the Sharks. This one's going to be a toughie. The Ducks have one of the strongest finishing season wrapping ups, basically. But there's some key injuries to be talked about here. John Gibson, who's probably one of their best players this season, there's a question mark on whether or not he'll play. Kevin Bieksa is out. Cam Fowler will miss the first round. This is the first postseason meeting between these two teams in 2009. And I don't really know off the top of my head who all is missing from the Sharks, but that is definitely an aging team. I'll throw it to Adam because I'm talking a lot.
Sharks are missing Eric Fair, Jay Ryan, I'm assuming it's Joe Ryan, Joakim Ryan, sorry, and then Joe Thornton.
Joe Thornton's out. Forgot about that one.
Thornton is unsure. He says he's doubtful to start the playoffs. Now, it's gonna be an interesting one. Let's see. John Gibson currently he skipped the trip to Arizona 2 days ago, so he's still a question mark as well. This one, I hope they both lose. Fuck both teams.
I don't like Sharks teams because they're fans. I don't like the Ducks because they're fans and their team.
I don't like the Ducks more than the Sharks, but yeah, I want the Sharks to win. I think the Ducks. Let me put it this way: if John Gibson comes back and plays average, I think the Ducks win. Otherwise, I think the Sharks pretty much roll because I don't know who's the backup in Anaheim right now.
Bernier. No.
No. Red O'Bara.
No. It's not Red O'Bara. It's
Ryan Miller's injured.
Oh, Ryan Miller's in.
No, he isn't.
He's not. He played the last two games. Yeah.
It'll be Ryan Miller.
It'll be Ryan Miller in net. Yeah. Ryan Miller's been pretty good in net for the Ducks, so I wouldn't put it past him to steal a few games in this series.
He played 28 games this year. He was solid 9-2. Yeah, he's been good. So you know what? I think overall, I think the Ducks will take this one.
Yeah, I'm gonna go the other way. I think this will be another one of the upsets, and I say upset because one team finished 101 and San Jose finished 100 for points. I think it's going to be the Sharks, and I think it's going to be in 7. One of the two things that stand out to me is more than the lack of... actually, no, the lack of Gibson's going to really hurt. I think Ryan Miller is going to be able to fill in plenty. But it's still going to be a question for me in terms of how well they can deal with a relatively poor power play. And then to add to all of this, I think the Sharks, I don't know, they're gonna have one last hurrah kind of playoff run, and that's gonna be it for them in terms of their entire future.
Yeah, I don't see the Ducks going down easy either, because they're kind of getting up there with Perry and Getzlaf as well. These teams are both definitely the twilights of their NHL careers. I see both teams pushing hard. I expect 7 games too, but I'll take the Ducks in 7.
It's funny how quickly Perry fell off in that conversation, huh?
It's pretty amazing, yeah, really how fast and how far he fell off. Ryan Getzlaf's been very old this year too.
I don't have for the next set of for the Eastern Conference exact game scores, so I'll just say what each records are. The Lightning has come in relatively cold into the last quarter of the season. The big question mark being the defense has been not doing well with the addition of McDonough, who should be a phenomenal defenseman into the team. Adding the fact that Hedman missed a few games, and Vasilevsky's leads the league in terms of wins, tied with Hellebuck with 44, but has let in significantly more goals and has a worse stat line overall. Fortunately, one of the key things for the Lightning is when they really know how to score. The Devils squeaked into the playoffs, and definitely
they tripped and fell into the playoffs.
They tripped and fell into the playoffs. The best way to put it. They're the number 2 wildcard spot, and the thing is that Taylor Hall and Keith Kincaid being two of the best players on the team, not what's his name again? Corey Schneider. It's going to be interesting in terms of how that plays out, especially when you look at the fact that the Devils finish relatively strong and hold a perfect season series record against the Lightning, with only one of their wins coming in extra time.
It's a really weird matchup, because the Devils have a perfect record against this team that's been dominant all year, and the Lightning did really slow down the last month and a half. But
oh, I'm getting a little bit of dropping here. I apologize for that. Adam, could you repeat that point really quick? My internet decided to crap for a quick second.
I was saying it's a really weird kind of situation, because you look at the Devils, and they went obviously undefeated against the Lightning, who were so dominant this year. And you got to wonder if it's playing style differences that the Lightning can just get shut down by the Devils for some weird reason. But if you look at the Devils, my concern personally for them is their leading scorer, who had I think was 20 more points than the next player on the team, is Taylor Hall.
I think it's more than 20, by the way.
I think it was around. I think it was 18 or 20, something like that.
Let me check that one, because I'm pretty sure it's more than that. But continue.
Taylor Hall has never played in the playoffs, and it's a whole different animal. Now, while I don't think he'll fail miserably because he's a clutch player, that's what he does, I think the playoffs are a whole different animal, and the Lightning are more prepared for that as a team. I can still see the Devils getting 1 or 2 out of this, potentially even 3, but I see the Lightning taking it in 6. 7. I'm going to say 7.
Adam. Nico Hischier finished with 52 points this season. Taylor Hall finished with 93. He has 41 more points in second place.
Yeah, so for me, that if you're having one player score that much, I think this is a bit ironic coming from guys who watch the Oilers every day and a Connor McDavid. But
the difference isn't even that high with the Oilers. So I'll argue that.
Yeah, if you have one player producing that much, if he gets shut down, which the Lightning have an entire defensive core that's going to be trying to do that, and when other guys goes cold, you only have 3. You have to win 4 games. Those 4 games could be damn near impossible to win. So, obviously the entire series and then any game against the Devils is going to depend on shutting down Hall. But I can see the Lightning pulling this one out, maybe in 7. It'll be close. I think Taylor Hall is going to catch fire, but it'll be close.
This will be one of those series where I honestly think it won't go to 7 games, but I don't know who's going to win it. Because either it's going to be, Lightning get their head out of their asses and finally start playing playoff hockey and, realize that the end of the season actually matters and your playoff, your position and everything matters. But the big question mark here, honestly, in terms of players to watch in both series, or in this series from each team, one for me is going to be how 2 big players come up in. Hold on, I'm trying to pull up names here. Jesper
Fast.
Fast, yes. No. Why am I thinking? No, Will Butcher. How he's able to handle this playoff series, considering that he's second in the team for power play points, and along with that, Kyle Palmieri, who albeit does play with Hall, but I can very much imagine that in case offense doesn't work, something gets mixed up on those lines. Those are going to be my 2 big players, and I'm not sure if Palmieri is injured or not, so I apologize in case I'm talking out of my ass here. But that's going to be it, and I think it's actually going to be the Devils in 6.
So that's the biggest upset, then it would be the biggest upset of the first round.
Yeah, this is one of those cases where, generally, I've looked at it in terms of that. Like, I was able to predict that the range, what was that goddamn team again? The Nashville Predators would beat the Chicago Blackhawks, but I didn't think it would be in 4. But that being said, I think this is one of those where it's like everything is in place for everything to go wrong for the Lightning. It's just a matter of whether or not the Lightning will allow that to happen.
I still think the Lightning have been too good this year to let it go that fast, but we've seen teams play that well and fall down very fast. So
we have a key injury as well for the Lightning. Steven Stamkos is questionable.
Fair. That's true.
Although he may be just being rested for the playoffs, but he hasn't played the last 3 or 4 games this season.
They deemed it minor, and they said he'd likely be ready for the playoffs. I think part of it was they just kept him out the last couple of games to be sure.
And Hedman as well is playing with something going on as well. Anyway, jumping to the next one, I'm assuming that it's 7 for Lightning. That's what you said.
Yep.
Capitals versus Blue Jackets. This one's pretty straightforward. 3 regulation wins for Capitals, 1 regulation win for the Blue Jackets. Okay. So
Caps in 5.
In a world where the Jackets win this series, what has to go right?
Oh God. Bobrovsky has to stand on his head. Ovechkin has to forget how to play hockey because Kuznetsov has to forget how to play hockey. Bobrovsky has to forget how to play, or not Bobrovsky, sorry. Backstrom has to forget how to play hockey. Holtby goes full retard. The defense decides to not show up to the game. The Blue Jackets somehow hit empty nets every game. Realistically, the only way I see the Blue Jackets winning this one is if the Caps lose the series themselves, which we've certainly seen them do every friggin' second round for the last decade. But I don't see them losing this one. The only main difference is the Capitals' underlying stats are probably the worst I've ever seen for a team that's done well in a season in a long time. Like, their shots per game is 31st in the league.
What?
31st. Their goals per game. Their goals per game is 3.12 for 9th, and their shots per game is 29th. Or 29.0 for 31st in NHL.
This is where knowing your random ass stats is going to come into advantage. So the big tell-all in terms of which team will do which team will do successfully in this series is just gonna come down, in my opinion, to special teams. Because Columbus Blue Jackets have made the playoffs with with pretty much on par in terms of an average, worst power play and worst penalty kills in the league. Solidly, 25th for penalty power play, and then 27th for penalty kill. Yeah. Switch that over to the Capitals, and hold on, I'm trying to find it. The Capitals are pretty much average in their penalty kill at 80%, but their power play is 7th in the league at 22.5%. That's also one of the tell-all signs for why they did as well in this season, as even though the shots per game might indicate otherwise, is simply because, they're good at putting it in the back of the net when they get the chance. Mm-hmm. So on that point, I think it's just going to come down to how Bobrovsky plays. And Bobrovsky didn't play in the last 2 or 3 games, but he's coming into it hot. And I think it's going to be one of those 7-game series, and I think the Blue Jackets are going to win it.
No, I'd take the Caps in 5. The Caps don't have a lot of problems in the first round. They'll have a hiccup or two, but unless there's a player playing a strong team, and I don't believe the Blue Jackets are a strong team this year, because the Blue Jackets fell off the wagon pretty hard towards the end of the season. I don't think the Caps are going to struggle to beat them this year. Second round, again, will be the big determining factor for this team. It is every year. I don't think they'll struggle this one. I think they'll win in 5.
Yeah. Going on to the next one here. The Bruins versus the Montreal Maple Leafs.
What? What now?
The Bruins versus the Montreal.
You fucking dumbass.
That was a genuine mistake.
I know some people would like to kill you right about now.
That was not intended a joke. That was just a genuine mistake. I'm not used to the Maple Leafs consistently making the playoffs. Switch that over to the Montreal Canadiens, and they technically have made it 8 of the last 10 seasons. So I apologize for mixing that up. That is my bad. But this is the Atlantic number 2 versus the Atlantic.
Just so you know.
The Atlantic number 2 versus the Atlantic number 3 teams. The Bruins have a third best in the league record. Same number of points as the Lightning, but they've won fewer times in regulation. One fewer times. My bad. The Leafs have 105 points, with one fewer win than the Bruins. The Leafs hold the season series record at 3-1-0. The Bruins are 1-2-1. And I think the big question mark it's just going to come down to it is, this is the battle of advanced stats, isn't it?
I think more so, to be honest, is the battle of young talent. Because if you look at it, the Bruins have really been bolstered this year. Obviously, the Marchand, Pasternak, and Bergeron line killed it. They're arguably the best line in the NHL. But
McAvoy's coming back from surgery. I will add to that.
Yeah, the addition of young talent, Charlie McAvoy has obviously been amazing. Jake DeBrusk has been really good. I'm blanking on a few of the other names. But
Rick Nash, it was good to start. He sort of slowed down. I'm blanking on some names too. I'm trying to pull them out of the air.
Bjork's been pretty good. Donato's been a welcome addition. Brendan Carlo's obviously been very good. Nick Holden's been passable. Like, they have a lot of young players who are stepping up right now, and Toronto's entire team is young. Like, minus Marlowe, like, their team is a young team. The big question to me is going to be consistency of the goaltending. Tuukka Rask is hit or miss. Freddie Anderson is very hit or miss. I see this one going back and forth. The main difference with these teams is the Leafs play a very top 4 lines, puck movement, non-selfish hockey, and the Bruins play one very good line, one good line, 2 shutdown lines, as opposed to Toronto. I wouldn't say that.
I think the third line is very much a very offensively oriented line.
They're offensively gifted for sure, but I see them more as a team that relies on top-end talent and then has secondary scoring versus the Leafs that are kind of a complete lineup all the way through. that can hit you from any side, but isn't necessarily going to dominate on one line alone like the Bruins will. Okay. The big thing is going to come down to Kadri's line shutting down Pasternak and them. If they can do that, then they have a good chance. Mm-hmm. But I think this year is not the year for the Leafs. I think the Bruins take it in 7.
I'm going to go the other way and say that the Toronto Maple Leafs, excuse me, Jesus Christ, I did it twice. I was going to take it. Unfortunately, in terms of stats, definitely one key theme is there. The Toronto Maple Leafs' greatest strength is their offense and their power play. Would say that in terms of goals for per game, 4th and second in the league. But where they suffer compared to the Bruins, who are just 2 slots behind them in both categories, is the penalty kill and the goals against, where in the penalty kill they're 11th, where the Bruins are 3rd, and the goals against, where the Bruins are, hold on, I'm looking the wrong way, 4th, and the Toronto Maple Leafs are 12th. I do think at the end of the day it's going to come down to how well that apologies for that, ladies and gentlemen. I had a little bit of a drop. Hold on, I'm going to double check that everything is working all right. Yeah, there we go. So yeah, it's going to come down to, how each team puts it together. And I just think that the Leafs, in terms of, if I were to look at the Bruins and look at every single matchup that they have in the Eastern Conference, that's going to be a roadblock to them making the Cup Finals. The biggest one is the Maple Leafs, and I think the Maple Leafs are going to take it. So our next matchup, and I also think it's going to be in 7, Pittsburgh versus Philly. So Pittsburgh are the defending back-to-back Stanley Cup champions. Or is it back-to-back-to-back? I've lost track at this point.
No, it's back-to-back.
Back-to-back Stanley Cup champions, featuring Phil the Thrill, Sidney Crosby, Evgeny Malkin, Matt Murray, Chris Letang, and 2-time Stanley Cup winning chef Justin Schultz. Oh my god.
What is it with you and names?
So they finished just 2 points from each other, the other team being the Flyers, but the Flyers also host the number 2 highest finishing point producer this season in Claude Giroux, who finished with 102 points this season, second only to Connor McDavid. The Penguins hold the perfect record in the series, with one of their wins coming in extra time. It's 4-0-0. Who do you think wins?
Oh, God. I have to say, looking at these matchups, like I knew they were good, but man, there are some really, really fun first-round matchups this year. I mean, the Knights and the Kings is gonna be decent. The Wild and the Jets is gonna be fun. The Pens and the Flyers are gonna fucking kill each other. The Leafs and the Bruins are gonna kill each other. The Predators and the Avs eventually will go at it. And then, of course, there's San Jose and Anaheim. But this one, I think, is going to be the bloodiest of them all, and I cannot wait to watch it. I think the Pens, I hope the Pens will take it. I really don't. I'm not a huge fan of the Flyers. I know people are sick and tired of Crosby winning, but for me, Crosby winning means more motivation for McDavid, which is what I want to see. And I don't mind the Penguins outside of Justin Schultz, but I think the Penguins take this one. I think this one also goes to 7 just because the Flyers have had the Penguins numbers for years, and I think this is the first year where the Penguins really dominated them. Mm-hmm. But I don't know how long it lasted. The biggest question mark on the Flyers has been their goaltending. And Brian Elliott just came back from injury. He played 1 game. And so it'll be really interesting to see how he holds up against a really good Penguins team.
Yeah, Mrazek's been holding down the fort and helped them to qualify into the playoffs. But it's definitely not been a perfect record to finish it. They have one of the worst records, actually, to finish the season compared to... I think Vegas is only the worst record than them. But yeah, when we make that point, like, I really want the Flyers to win. Especially adding to this, by the way, that the Flyers have set a franchise record, this team, for the fewest penalties, minor penalties given up in a season, or taken in the season. I think that's the correct terminology. But one key stat for me that kills it for me for the Flyers in terms of their chances is that power play, because the Penguins hold the NHL best 26.2 power play, where their top line is basically Malkin, Crosby, Letang, sometimes switch for Justin Schultz,
Kessel.
And that's just, what the heck do you do? And, like, on top of that, you can't say, like, oh, there's no net presence because there's Hornquist. And Hornquist is coming again scorching hot into this. Obviously, Pittsburgh Penguins not as good on the penalty kill. It's a considerably weaker matchup in terms of defense. But in terms of, like, Eastern Conference first-round matchups, I think Penguins got the best that they could have outside of, say, the Devils. And I think it's going to be a pretty easy 5-1 for the Penguins.
I could see them winning in 6 as well. Or in 5 as well. Yeah.
Okay.
I will say it's worth noting with this Penguins team.
Mm-hmm.
Sidney goddamn Crosby finished 3rd on their team in scoring. Like they're Evgeny Malkin and Phil Kessel went off the fucking chain this year, and Sidney Crosby finished 3rd on their team in scoring, and he's still arguably the best player in hockey. It's this team. This team is good, and then there's a chance they win a thrrepeat.
Yeah,
now whether or not they do with some good teams and some hot teams right now, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if we should do each round because I think we'll run out of time considering we picked our favorites. But I think who do you think makes the finals and who do you think wins?
I think let's pick final 2 in the East and final 2 in the West and then finals.
All right.
That works.
Sure.
I think out of the Pacific matchups, I think that the LA Kings are my favorite to make it. I just think that they've got a lot of like you mentioned that the Bruins have started a youth movement. The LA Kings have very much started a youth movement. And I think the LA Kings are going to be the team from the Pacific. I think the team from the Central is going to be the Nashville Predators. And I think the Nashville Predators will make the final of the two. From the East, I think it's going to be the... who did I say it was? I think it's going to be the Boston... I think it's going to be between the Toronto Maple Leafs and the... oh, right. I had double upsets in the first round, didn't I? I'd say the Blue Jackets will make it too. I'm going to say the Blue Jackets and the Toronto Maple Leafs are in the East. And I'm going to say that Toronto wins it. And then in the finals, I have Nashville win again.
Trying to find a playoff bracket so I can make sure I'm not making a stupid mistake in choosing two teams that could potentially face each other in the second round.
Yeah. I think I might have done that. I just want to make sure I didn't. Atlantic, Metropolitan, Division Leader 1. Well, the East messes me up like no tomorrow. Hold on, I'll pull this up so then I'm not talking out of my ass either.
My NHL.
I got it.
Doing this. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I messed up. I've got to correct myself here. I've messed up. I've got to correct myself here. From the East, I've got Toronto, and I got the Pittsburgh Penguins.
I'm on the NHL.com thing, and it's I don't know if you understand what's wrong with this bracket, but it currently has the matchups as Colorado versus Colorado, Minnesota versus Minnesota, Capitals versus Ducks, Ducks versus Jackets.
Yeah, I've got it here. I've got it here. I'll let you know if something messes up. I can pull it up for you.
All right. I don't understand what the hell happened there. All right. So first, I'm going to say in the West first. From the Central, I bet you it's the Jets. I think they've been really, really good. Hellebuck's been good. Line will be good. I think they will play. I think the Kings. I think the Kings are going to upset a couple teams. They have the playoff intuition. I think they're gonna take it, and then I bet you that I'm gonna take the. I don't want to say the Kings over the Jets, but I bet you the Kings will be in the finals this year. Again, it's that even year bullshit.
Even year bullshit. Next up, your East.
East. Oh boy.
You had Tampa, Boston. So pick the winner between one of the two. And
actually, you know what? I think Anaheim. If Gibson comes back healthy, I think Anaheim might make it against Winnipeg.
Okay. If that Anaheim makes the finals.
So Anaheim makes the finals this year.
Okay. And then you had winning Tampa, Boston, and Capitals, Penguins. By the way, you picked no upsets outside of LA.
Yeah, I think the first round is going to be pretty.
Technically, the Jets beating the Predators. That's your other upset.
Yeah. Oh shit. Right. Yeah. No, I'll take the Jets over the Preds. I think that's going to be a weird one, but there's very good chance. East. Oh boy.
Tampa, Boston. Who wins?
Tampa, Boston. Oh god. I'm gonna say Tampa. Tampa rolls in that one. I think Vasilevsky's played too many games. They'll get past the Devils and he'll be exhausted.
So you think that Boston wins?
I think Boston beats Tampa.
Okay, and then in the other matchup is Capitals, Penguins.
Capitals, Pens.
Oh, this one's easy. Every year, by the way, every single time the Pittsburgh Penguins have beaten the Capitals on their way in the Stanley Cup playoffs, they have won the Stanley Cup every single time. I
mean, that's 3 times to be fair.
It is
but
3 times.
The Pens. I think the Pens beat the Caps. It's going to be another one of those second round
that's why I have Columbus beating the Capitals. But hey.
I just don't want to see them lose in the second round again.
Yeah.
No, I see the Caps losing to the Pens again.
Yeah. So the Pens, Boston. Who wins?
Oh, I think the Pens beat the Bruins. I think the Ducks beat the Pens this year.
Jesus Christ, you are like praising Hitler right now.
I know.
That's the worst team from the West, and that's the worst team from the East. And you have the worst team winning it. I
know.
You might as well hold up a Nazi sign in your background, and people would hate you less.
Probably. I wouldn't. My predictions are probably. I am very much in the same boat as Urinating Tree, where every single goddamn team I pick in every single fucking bracket loses. So there's a very good chance that this will be Predators versus Capitals.
Yeah.
Just as good of a chance as it will be the Bruins versus the fucking Ducks, the Pens versus the Ducks. The other one is for me is Nashville versus Tampa. Is the other one for me.
It's been a long ass time before the first team in the East and the first team in the West have met each other.
I know, but that's the first two teams this year were dominant for the vast majority of the year. And but for me, it depends on overworking because Pecorini's been good, but he hasn't been overworked. UC Saros has been good, but Vasilevsky and Rask, which is I'm a little concerned with my pick there, have both been overworked pretty damn hard this year. Mm-hmm. So is Freddie Anderson, for that matter.
Which one in the first round? We'll just finish off with this point and finish it off on that.
Mm-hmm.
Which one in this first round of picks that you've selected are you most confident about and least confident about?
Oh, that's a good one. I like that question. Yeah. I'm honestly most confident about the Jets. Oh no, about the Predators. Predators just gonna fucking pull the Avs. There's unless McKinnon goes full McDavid, the
Nashville Predators get all injured. That's another big one there because they face no injuries this season.
That is true. Typically in the playoffs you'll lose 1 or 2 good players. That tends to happen, but I bet you. Even if Rene goes down this year, Saros has been pretty damn good. But I honestly don't think the Predators will have any problems with the Avs. Least certain. Oh boy, there's a few here that I think go either way that I'm 100% not certain on. But I think Toronto and Boston's probably the one that I'm a little worried about because both teams are relatively even. And both have been surprises.
Yeah. I will agree with you on that. Honestly, even more. Like, I'm more confident about the Devils beating the Tampa Bay Lightning than I am about Toronto beating Boston. And that's just because Toronto and Boston just match up each other, like, perfectly. The Devils, honestly, it's a reach with the Devils beating the Tampa Bay Lightning, because it'll be one of the lowest placed teams that's ever beaten a high, like, team since last year. And it's been a while, but I think that's very much a possibility. I'm a huge proponent for season series matters, how you come into the playoffs matter. So I think the big question mark is going to be whether or not Toronto can beat Boston, or if their bad defending and goaltending will catch up to them. And then my question, my absolute confidence that I'm speaking with here is more than the Nashville Predators beating the Avs, is I'm fairly confident the Jets will whoop the Wild. I don't think it's going to be a sweep, but I'm fairly confident. Because, like, I can see a world in which the Predators just fail to score, but I can't see a world where the Jets can't continue being the Jets.
Yeah, that's their game. They score. And Connor Hellebuyck backs up them. Now, I will say, the big one for me, this is my last question, and then I'm good.
Sure.
Are we discounting the Knights more than we should?
Yes.
Because I
think we are, because that's been a theme throughout the entirety of the season, is that everyone discounted the Knights. They went, oh, this team can't, like, play well. They matched up well. And I think one of the big things here in terms of why I'm not having the Knights win their first round is how poorly they match up to the Pacific teams. I'll have to pull up all the records here, but I'm fairly confident in saying that they've got even records and losing records against pretty much all of the Pacific teams outside of San Jose.
They have 13, 11, and 5. Or no, sorry, that was the Kings. Actually, the Knights, to be honest, in the division were 26 and 3.
What? That can't be right.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Yeah, the Knights division record. I got the score up right here. The Knights division record was 26 and 3 this season. We were one of the few teams that won more than one game against the Knights.
That doesn't seem right.
It is. The Knights, on the other hand, or the Kings, on the other hand, were 13, 11, and 5. The Knights in their conference were 33, 13, and 4.
Win chart. Series records. Hold on. Oh, no, I am wrong. Very much so. The LA Kings, they have an even series against they beat the Ducks. They beat the Flames. They beat the
Oilers.
They lose to the Oilers. They tie the Kings. We're one of the few teams with the point. We have won the most games against the Kings this season. They're good against the Sharks. They're good against... Oh, damn. Well, damn, I'm wrong. But that being said, they're coming into it cold. But I will admit it, I was wrong on that front, and I apologize.
I think there's a chance that, like, we could both, because we both said the Kings are going to win that. There's a chance we could be wrong. Inexperience does plague the Knights lineup in terms of playoffs, and I still think the Kings have that weird kind of playoff
buff,
extra mode they go into.
Yeah.
But I think the Knights could push the Kings to the brink, potentially breaking them.
So here's the thing. Let's say that the Knights win their first round. How deep do you think they'll go?
I think if they win the first round, they go to the conference finals, because their next matchup is against either the Ducks or the
Sharks.
The Sharks, and they dominated both those teams all year.
Yep.
So
and I agree with you on that front. I 100% agree. I think they're going to win that. The Predators are going to be their big question mark.
That'll be, yeah. So, I mean, like...
They have a 2-1 record against the Predators, but Predators and Jets are going to be the big question marks there.
Yeah, it'll be... There's some real weird matchups, but I think if the Knights can prove people wrong, get past the King, get past the first round jitters, Marc-Andre Fleury continues to be this year's Marc-Andre Fleury. Carlson doesn't cool down.
Carlson finished hot. You're right.
If you get some scoring help from Neal and Marchessault and Smith and their defense stays consistent, but I think the Knights can. I wouldn't say upset the Kings, but push them for sure.
I think none of the NHL writers have picked the Golden Knights to win their first round.
Which is, I still find it like we're all so skeptical, despite the fact they've been proving everybody wrong all season, and they're going to feed off that.
Their entire motto is all doing that. But like the way that I see it is like the last time that this team matched up against another team like that was Gerard Gallant's Nashville Predators that lost a 7-game series to, I forget which team it was, but
you mean the Panthers? Because he coached the Panthers last.
The Panthers. Holy shit! Sorry, both of them are cats. It's a very understandable mistake, I assure you.
Like 6 times they do, man.
Yeah.
Cool.
I'll look up who they lost to, but like that was a series where it shouldn't have been close for the Panthers. The Panthers should have won it, in my opinion. But I'll find that out. But one last question for you while I'm finding this. Who do you think scores the most points in the first round? So this would have to also go with who do you think plays the most games and which matchup scores the most points. I'm gonna have fun with toying you here.
I think Evgeny. Well, I think Evgeny Malkin.
Yeah, the Islanders. They lost in the first round to the Islanders in 6. And everyone was cheering for the Panthers in that matchup, and they were ranked higher than the Islanders, I'm fairly sure, because they were first in the Atlantic that season.
Mm-hmm.
But the Islanders upset them, essentially. So I see very similar things happening here.
I see, so in terms of scoring, I see Evgeny Malkin scoring a fair bit. He was obviously very good all year. Generally matched up well against the Flyers. When he gets pissed off, he goes on a rant, or he goes fucking off, and the Flyers are really good at pissing Malkin off. Mm-hmm. Not only that, but I think that series goes to 7, if not like 6 or 7, so it gives him more time to score. So I think Malkin scores most in the first round.
Yeah. I'm going to say it's going to be Marner. I think, especially with that series, I'm expecting that to go to 7. I think Marner's going to match up very well into the series, and he's coming into it super hot. Albeit, splitting points between Nylander and Matthews might put a dent in that. But I think the player to watch out for is going to be Marner. I was
going to say, I just realized someone I just thought about that I didn't think of. So obviously Claude Giroux's coming in hot.
Ooh.
But aside from Claude Giroux, who's been really, really good lately, Brad Marchand's obviously.
All right, yeah.
And he tends to feast on the Leafs. So I'm not, there's a few, I think it's between those 3 realistically, Giroux, Marchand, and Malkin, and those are obviously the 3 of the top 4 scorers in NHL this year.
Yeah.
But they're playing in matchups where they dominate their opponents' teams pretty regularly, and I think it could be a good matchup for all of them.
Yeah, it's completely.
And they're all. I think all those series goes to 6 or 7. So that's the other side of it.
Yeah, you're completely right. Yeah. This is going to be a question mark, but one thing I will finish on is 2017 and 2018 combined, both seasons, Toronto Maple Leafs have won 7 of 8 games.
Yeah, they've been good against the Bruins, but man,
this is a team that matches up well against the Bruins, and the Bruins can't seem to win on their home ice. I mean, not their home ice, but Toronto's home ice. Anyway, that's it for us. We ran for a very long podcast. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Could you scooch over a bit more to your right, Adam? There we go. It's too much. Now it's too little. Now it's right. No, too much. Anyway, thank you very much for joining us for this week's podcast. We will likely be casting in another 3 weeks' time. We're all busy with our individual things. James will be joining us at that time, so don't worry about that on that front. Anyway, this has been me, otherwise known as Retake5. With me today was Adam, otherwise known as Street44722 on Reddit. And be sure to like, comment, subscribe. Leave us comments in terms of what stuff you might want us to talk about in our season review, if there's anything specific. But we'll be bringing in our own analysis and things like that. Regardless, thank you very much for joining us for our podcast this week. And hopefully you enjoy the playoffs. Anyway, see ya.